Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Lipp Men on Sports. I am Sportcat. I'm kind of like the little guy that hides in the corner. Uh, we are going to have a great show here tonight. I've got both, if I can talk, I got both men present and accounted for. So let's get this show started. First, we'll have the big guy, Jeff. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I've picked my Arlington Stout. I'm sorry, not my Arlington, my Birmingham Stallions shirt, but the one with the stupid logo because although they won, it was in a stupid way. So,
Well, I, I don't know what to tell you. They played Memphis, right?
yeah,
It was closer than it should have been. So I do know that.
much closer than it should have been. But actually, it was. It was Memphis versus St. Louis. So, yeah,
Okay.
Birmingham played DC. So,
That's right. That's what it went lightning delay. That's right. Yeah.
right. But that I mean, DC has a good stout defense, but I mean, while I am not the only Lipp Man, and we're not the only, and the two of us aren't the only Lipp Men in the world, we do have another Lipp Man standing by.
Yeah, let's bring him in back here. He's had. We don't want him to feel left out. Let me get you all straight because I know what happens there. I don't want to.
I was getting a little lonely over here, all alone in the back room.
Yeah, don't disrespect.
Like, how are you,
I mean, last week I'm rolling all over his chance to plug social media because I got too much going on and can't keep three thoughts in my head without forgetting them. The fourth one, so my bad.
Well, that's why he added the glasses to the wardrobe to make himself look a little smarter today.
I wondered about that. I was wondering if that was cosmetic or if he really had to get the little readers out. So
no, these are reading glasses, but I don't have bifocals. But I still have to do this because, well, I mean, bifocals look so terrible, but there's a reason that people put them at the end of their nose so that you can see up regular.
Yeah.
The problem I'm experiencing right now is that my handwriting is awful, and even though I can see it more clearly, all I can see more clearly is that I can't write worth a darn.
Didn't you go to school for that? Just curious.
I did, but it was like, what am I? We're like the same age, so it was like 100 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, I forgot,
like
by the way, we do have a live call-in. I forgot to plug for everybody that is wanting to call in. 1-888-88-YERGZ. That's 1-888-88-YERGZ on your phone pad. And the Lipp Men will be more than glad to answer all of your UFL questions. Not me. I'm just going to hide down here.
Oh no, you're on. You watched some of the games this week. You're part of this, and your UFL sounded a little bit like UFO. So you're handling all those.
It's true. So all right. Well, Uncommon Soul is here, and so we already got one. We got one. So
that's all right. One is the loneliest number, but with us that's 4. So that's good.
That's true. Let's see if you can still do math. You can't write, but you can do math. So
right.
Thank God.
All right. Well, listen. First of all,
hold on. I gotta fix that. Sorry, I'm pushing buttons. That's what I do down here.
I know, and I keep forgetting you do actually edit the podcast so that we don't have to worry about like speaking nonsense and always speaking just to make sure there's no dead air there.
Oh yeah. Until I can afford that software to eliminate the cuss words. So.
Good. So I can say whatever I want today.
That is correct. We are not on FM. We are on internet radio, YurgsRadio.com. If you can't tune us in by YouTube, you can, or actually, I think we're on YouTube Music. You can go to YurgsRadio.com and catch it. So
you bleeping can.
I got a button for that somewhere down here, but I never use it. So
well, bleep, yeah. All right, all the cursing we can do. Well, it's UFL week 4, and football season goes really quickly, and this is a 10-game season, so we're sort of at the midway point-ish of it. We're sort of at the St. Louis of midway, I'd say, if you use the United States as a metaphor, the gateway of midway, anyhow. And with one exception, I think the teams have pretty much told us who they are for the most part. And the one exception is a team that I was on and off the bandwagon, and it's San Antonio, and I just can't figure them out. But that's not the first game. But I saw that look of, I'm not so sure about that. Not so fast, senor. So what do you got to say about that, Jake?
I just think you couldn't be more wrong. I think right now the teams are just now showing us who they are. And I think that we're just kind of starting to see their identities form. I think the first couple of weeks we saw 0 running game. We saw a lot of mistakes. And although there were a ton of mistakes this week, a ton of turnovers, I think the injuries play a factor. And we'll talk about some of these specifics later. But a guy in Jacour Pearson, he didn't play the first 3 weeks of the season. He was the XFL leading receiver last year, and he came in with a bang this week. So, yeah, we're not talking about flying saucers, but Jacour Pearson, he was flying all over the field. And I think these injuries, I mean, we're seeing some quarterbacks go down. We've seen a lot of things happen, and rosters have been changing. We've seen some running backs show up out of nowhere. I think the season's just getting started, and it might be week 4 going into week 5, but anything can happen, and there's only one undefeated team left, so the playoffs are wide open.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely one thing about these games is all of them are competitive until the end, or no game is necessarily out of hand until the end. And we'll talk about. But while we disagree on, or I'm not even sure really how much we disagree, because I said I think we're starting to see that the teams are what they are, and you said that we're still starting to. I think it's just a question of degree. Anyway,
they're just becoming what they're going to be.
Okay, fair enough. Listen, what we can't disagree on is objective stuff. And so I have the ratings from week 3. The ratings from week 4 are not out yet. So we have DC versus Arlington had 534,000, which is not great, but I am told it's better than the other spring football leagues were in the prior 3 seasons, generally in the same time slot. Memphis versus Birmingham, 837,000. Houston versus Michigan, 974,000. And St. Louis versus San Antonio, 1.023 million. So we had one game over $1 million, another that came close. So not too bad. And I got some business news also, which I shared with you, Jake. And it looks like the national ads are being sold for just under $7,000 per 30-second slot. The league makes about $425,000 per game. And there's $3.7 million booked already by the participating networks for this season. Which means that the games really are $465,000 per telecast. I don't know if it's unevenly divided between teams or the rates go up for certain games down there. I didn't get that breakdown, but the source is sportico.com. And there was a little controversy in that the Department of Defense or the Department of the Army let it be known that the marketing arm or the oversight arm wasn't too thrilled with the marketing arm for investing $11 million a year in the UFL. But what's done is done. And so that was like the little mini controversy of the week. Do you have any other notes on that, or we could just go to like injuries and other notes?
No, I think we can move forward. I just think that the numbers we are seeing are promising when you think about whether the league has some sustainability. I think I've been a little bit of a hater in that regard, where I haven't been so sure what the longevity can really be. And I think we're seeing the changes being made and the implementation of some strategies needed for the sport to continue. And there's been some rumblings about what the expansion is going to look like if it gets there. So I think we are seeing some promising things. And I think the biggest news really is some of these injuries. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, definitely some injuries that we knew about going into the week. San Antonio's quarterback, Chase Garbers, was out for the week, and he's put on IR with a broken wrist. IR is 5 weeks, as a minimum of 5 weeks, as we've learned, so it's not necessarily the entirety of the season. But their backup quarterback, I think, acquitted himself pretty well. We'll get into that. San Antonio's quarterback, Cameron Dantzler, was put on the suspended list. And as you mentioned, St. Louis wide receiver Jacour Peterson came back, and it wasn't clear if he was going to play or not, but he came back with a bang. And I know this isn't really the segment, but St. Louis has an excellent wide receiving core. And, I'm not sure the team may not want to trade with them for like an Aitman or something like that. So a team like DC or Houston that has no offense to really speak of. And, maybe you can use a guy like that you never know when it's just one player who opens everything up. So,
but to rebuttal that, I'm not sure that they're going to make any moves. AJ McCarron threw the ball 45 times last week. 45 times. I think they like throwing it out. And I think they've got that receiving core that's kind of similar to what he had with the Bengals. And I think they like keeping that intact. But we can continue. I digress.
You could well be right. And they also got their running game going, though some of it was on one big run, but still counts. Roughnecks defensive end Carlo Kemp retired. So Houston, another blow there, strengthens their defense, and they get a guy retiring in week 3. That's not great. And there was a little bit of a surprise in that Birmingham announced that their starting quarterback would be Matt Corral instead of Adrian Martinez. And I know I scratched my head, and I know you agreed in that head scratching as well. We'll get to that when we get to the game.
Yeah.
And then also on game day, we learned that St. Louis running back Mateus Durant is out. As it turned out, that wasn't the crushing blow that we thought it might be, or maybe it was, but the football gods showed us otherwise. So first game, ABC, 12:30 Eastern time, Memphis at St. Louis. Both of us picked St. Louis in a blowout. It was not, in fact, a blowout, but they won
until the end. They won by 15.
Right. But I mean, we both, like, what did I say? Like 70-3, and you said something like 60-6 or so.
Yeah, I think we may have overestimated it a little bit.
No, and we were both being sarcastic. I think everyone
it was better football than that. Now, come on.
It definitely was.
Up until the end. Yeah, up until the end it was. So.
And I think the fact that we should mention more than anything was that this game had the most points scored in the first half so far. So I thought it was shocking, being that it was like 17-14, and that was the most points scored by an individual team and for a total half. But we're setting records here in the UFL.
Good numbers there. And speaking of good numbers, St. Louis, a home game, they drew 31,757. I mean, obviously the league top. Pretty respectable St. Louis.
They lost 10,000 fans between their last home game.
Right, but I think the St. Louis Cardinals were playing the same time. So you could look at it as an excuse. You can look at it as legitimate. I respect either point, but still, they are far away.
And it was loud there.
What's that?
It was loud in that stadium. They definitely have home field advantage.
Yeah. Now, Cook has got the start. He keeps getting hurt, but he keeps getting back in. He's very tough. I'm not really sure how good his team is around him. Obviously, the offensive line seems to be porous. We've talked about Cookus, and I don't want to spoil anything just yet. But the game started with St. Louis on offense. They had a pretty efficient drive, but it stalled with a field goal, and then Cookus threw a touchdown to your guy, Papelli. Yeah. And then Darius Shepard then had a 60-yard kickoff return right after that, and then Sailors got a TD pass, and he's a running back, but that's fine. And of course, the streak continues. Both teams missed their extra point attempts, so it was 9-6 St. Louis. There was a defensive interception back to the 41-yard line. Then there were 2 defensive penalties. So they got sent back to their own 2-yard line, or they advanced to the 2-yard line, and the running back Gallman had a rush TD, his first this year, former Giant, former NFLer, sort of a forgotten man, but he got in from 2 yards out.
Yep, and it was about time, because a guy with that pedigree and that running style, I mean, in short yardage, he should be getting in the end zone every time. Great.
And then you know what else happened? A 2-point conversion was made to who we were talking about, Aitman. So at this point, it's 17-6. We get then St. Louis has a mixed field goal, which broke the streak of 20 consecutive field goals made for all UFL kickers. So, I guess a pretty good streak overall, but I'm sure the St. Louis kicker didn't feel so great about, breaking that one.
And, we talked a lot about the kicker succeeding last week, and I don't know if it was luck or if a curse began, because it did not continue going the way that it had been for the early parts of the season. All across the league, there was a lot of struggle in the kicking game. I mean, we saw punts getting blocked, missed field goals, so a bad snap. I mean, it was a little bit messy. But how's it going, Shay?
Oh, hi, Shay. Cheyenne, that's our secondary producer and I think all around extraordinaire helper person.
Cheyenne is my paranormal assistant. She does everything.
Paranormal assistant. You're a paranormal assistant, so you're very possessive.
Yeah, I'll share.
No, that's not. You'll share Shay. That's all right. nice little rhyme there. All right, so then we get a rush TV from Darius Victor for the Memphis side, and they had a 2-point conversion to their tight end, big number 83, Surratt. Remember his name because later on he drops a bunch of passes. I just told you why to remember his name, so now you forget it. It's now 17-14, but Memphis then gets a defensive interception. They run it all the way back to the 15. Things are looking great, but it's a field goal, 17-17. St. Louis responds with a field goal, 20-17. Then we get that bad punt, which shanks and only goes to the 46 line. But I have to point the defensive end, his name is Feeney or Feeney Jr. or Feeney the second. He was terrific. He was dominant that whole game. He was all, tell us a little bit about him because I know you know everything about everything.
He's just a big bruising edge rusher with some good speed on him. He's always down to make a play, and he made a couple of them this past week. And I think overall their whole defense made a bunch of plays. But I'll let you finish the game, and then we'll go into some specifics.
Well, you know what? The thing is, everyone is down to make a play, but not everyone does it. So he does it. All right. So there's an offensive penalty with a chop block. So there's a drive that survives, and that's pretty lame over there. But and the commentary went at great lengths to tell us that the coaches basically are training football players to give like NBA blocks where they just sort of stand there, so the whole pick and roll. But no, this guy was basically doing a tackle. Anyway, it didn't hurt because St. Louis ended up with a TD pick to your namesake, Jake Sutherland. Extra point was missed, of course. But first it was ruled as good as McCarron ran in and used his speed, which apparently he got from his mother. She claimed it as she and his wife and kids were in the celebrity box or the sky box. By the way, his wife's a looker. Very who is Trump's former White House spokesperson who never spoke to the White House, never spoke to anyone? Maybe it was Melania's Hope Hicks, I think. Very Hope Hicks. All right.
He had good pick, good stock there. Yeah. She's
Yeah.
probably a cheerleader somewhere before.
Yeah, well, good for McCarron, because if he wasn't the quarterback, I mean, I don't know. Maybe
two-time national champion winner at the University of Alabama. You got to win something.
He did. Good for him. All right. So anyway, the officials in the box overruled it. They said he was down before getting in. So actually,
he's not very fast.
Yeah, that was a little bit weird because they're usually pretty conservative, but they thought it was pretty clear. Now, it's weird because I had noted that because of the math involved, I would have gone for 2 because this would have made it a 11-point game, and I'm like, well, why not just make it a 12-point game at that point, or I'm sorry, it would have made a 10-point game, and I would have made an 11-point game if they went for 2, which means that it's a score and a touchdown, or it's a score and they have to go for extra points, which have been difficult to do, but the coaches decided against it. They didn't get the 1, so they didn't get the 1, so we'll never know if it makes a difference. In any event, quarterback Williams comes in the fourth quarter for Cookus. He gets hurt on a sack. It looks like it's his shoulder this time, not his knee. The quarterback immediately goes into a delay of game penalty. Then he gets sacked by Wells. But there was a defensive turnover for Memphis, so it actually didn't come back to haunt them too much, but nothing happened. And they stalled out. This is when we had the offensive run by Sailors, who found a hole, and for a big guy, nobody was catching him. He had a 57-yard run, and then apparently this was the second 100-yard rushing game in the UFL this season. They reported at the game that he rushed for 105 yards. It sounds like they've reduced it since to 103 yards. And then Person got a TD catch there. And at this point, it was 32-17 St. Louis. That's how the game ended. So Memphis continues to prove me right as being just bad enough to lose or just good enough to lose, whichever way you want to look at it. They were tough for the first half. They seem to fall apart and they make mistakes at the wrong time. St. Louis was steady. I mean, they look good, not great, but I know St. Louis is your team, Jakester. So What do you think?
In a way, but I'll address the chat real quick. Uncommon Soul, the season started 4 weeks ago. We're in week 4. We got 6 more weeks coming up before the playoffs. And Corey Lewis, good luck with the Showboats, because I'll talk about them in a second here. At 1-3, it's been a rough start, and who knows if Case Cookus is going to keep playing. And we've seen mixed results from Troy Williams. But I will say, I think we saw their best game running for Memphis, which is kind of a surprising fact because St. Louis is the best team in the league, most likely. And I thought Titus Sween, he had a couple moments, and Darius Victor, he finally got in the end zone. So it's not all doom and gloom. And Vinny Papel, basically the exact same play as last week, a slant route that he took to the house. So there are little positives in there, but they lost by 15. They had a couple guys on defense that played well. Greg Reeves off the edge, but I mean, really, at the end of the day, for Memphis, they might take my spot for worst team in the league now. And we can get into that later. But they're competing with Arlington, so I don't know. I don't want to be too negative. I don't want to be too doom and gloom. And yes, you're right. Sage Surratt, he had a big play and then made a couple of mistakes to counteract it. So 1 step forward, 3 steps back. And that kind of seems like the story of their season. And it's befitting of their 1-3 record. So that's really what I've got to say about Memphis. And when you talk St. Louis, I mean, we mentioned it earlier, 45 passes. I mean, A.J. McCarron was throwing the ball everywhere. I think he threw it to like 9 different receivers or something, 35 completions. Kind of ridiculous. And Mateo Durant, as you mentioned, he was their running back 1 going into the season. And Sailors was kind of used as a hybrid slot man running back last week. But this week, we really saw his speed used at running back. And he made a couple of really big plays. Yeah, he's going to make an impact in the return game when they're not using Darius Shepard, who has consistently made big plays. But they are at no shortage of weapons. And it'd be nice to get
guy too. He's not small. He's not like a scat back. He's a big man.
Yeah, but I mean, for a receiver, he's a slot guy. He's not a big outside receiver. And for a running back, he's a big running back. So he's kind of in that hybrid. And I think they're going to use him as such. And even with the loss of Durant, they've got Gallman, they've got Sailors. And as we've mentioned, they definitely have the best receiving core. I mean, between the 6'6" Marcel Laitman and Hakeem Butler, Darius Shepard and Jacquard Pearson, both able to play both inside and outside. I mean, they've got weapons on weapons on weapons. And then Jake Sutherland, he's always good for a big play. And my favorite thing about Jake Sutherland is you see him going down the field on punts and making plays on special teams. So, and I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, early in the game, he went down and put a hit stick on the return man and forced a fumble too. So I do like this team a lot, not just because you bought me a hoodie, but this team is slowly but surely growing on me. I wanted to dislike them at the beginning, and I was blaming A.J. McCarron and whatever. But, I mean, as we go on with the year, I mean, they are really a legit team, and they're well-rounded. And we mentioned Travis Feeney earlier, and they lost their best edge rusher, Pita Tauamuapenu. Yeah, something like that. And he's definitely their best guy on the edge. And Travis Feeney stepped in with nothing, but I can't tell if that's I want to say.
No, that's me, because I'm assuming he's Samoan, and I'm acknowledging my tribal chief, Roman Reigns.
Yes. I mean, that name.
Or my new tribal chief, Solo Sokoa. Either way, I'm acknowledging the tribe.
Deal. And the last guy I'll mention 2 guys. Lavert Hill, former Michigan defensive back. He made a big play on defense, and he was all over the receivers in coverage. And also Travis Feeney. We already talked about Travis Feeney. Will Harvey Jr., though, that's their middle linebacker too. So they got multiple linebackers that are doing well. And really, I think when you look at their team, they're a complete team. I mean, their kicker's pretty solid. Schmidt, he won the Kicker of the Year award in college football as a freshman. So I think there's a reason why they're 4-0, and I think this is a team that they started off the year as, the odds-on favorites, and I think they're just cementing that status as the best team in the league as the year goes on.
Let me say a couple things. One, I think all 8 of these teams have adequate defenses. Some of them are better than others, but good defense is played league-wide, and it's not all because of bad offenses. I don't know that St. Louis is the best team in the league. I don't know that they're not, but I don't see them losing a home game because they've got the crowds. As long as those crowds continue to come in, even 10,000 less than last week. If it gets loud in there, and that energy has to feed off, and the other teams they're in their stadiums with 7,000 to 11,000 people. They can't go in there and feel somewhat disheartened. I would think anyway. I would. I mean, I'm not a professional athlete. The other thing is Glenn is being stingy on the comments because his paranormal assistant Shay is saying that A, he doesn't share, B, that AJ McCarron isn't going to get ugly chicks. And she's saying if there are so many big men in the UFL, she may start watching, which would be great. We could always use a third person because we've been told that Kyle Jackson will not be joining us on air next week. And, we're used to having, like, even if he doesn't say much, it's just I feel grounded, rooted, just knowing that Glenn's little box is there underneath me.
Well, I was doing some homework because you sparked my interest. Catherine Webb is the wife. They have 3 children of AJ, and she was a Miss Alabama. She was also a part of, yes, she was. She was an Alabama cheerleader, and she was a part of Trump's TV show for a while. So there are ties to Trump there.
There we go.
I knew there was. I just couldn't remember. As soon as you said that, it clicked. So yeah,
she's such a Trump type. I mean, she could be a young Melania. She could be Hope Hicks. She could be the lawyer that doesn't know how to lawyer. She could be my future ex-wife. It may still be.
Yeah, luckily I got a good lawyer on retainer. So
yeah, I wish you would share. All right, so the next game was DC at Birmingham. So this is a weird game because there was like a torrential rainstorm in Birmingham, and so this game went to a delay and
lightning delay.
Right, lightning delay. And the interesting thing is that remember last week where we were confused that there were 2 games airing on Fox at the same time. It wasn't an error. They had San Antonio was playing Michigan at the same time. Michigan at San Antonio rather, and why they would do that, I'm not sure. I don't know what else was on. I imagine there was baseball or other priorities. Maybe they think regional. Frankly, I don't think this league is big enough or popular enough yet for regional games, but we'll find out this weekend with the numbers on both teams. So they may be a little skewed by that delay
and with 2 games at 7 p.m. on Saturday, both on Fox.
Yeah, it was a little bit odd, but DC and Birmingham. Listen, I have thought that Birmingham is the best team in the league, the most competent on both sides of the ball. Spoiler: they ended up winning, but they got really lucky. This was like a last minute kind of drive. Kudos to DC for sticking in there and playing tough, but shame on DC for not being able to put it away. Shame on Birmingham for almost giving this game away. And I believe that Coach Skip Holtz was quoted as saying, "We only lose when we turn over the ball," and they turn over the ball. They did. There was a fumble recovered, like basically in the first play. By the way, the attendance was only 7,000. It was announced at 7,262. It was later revised up to 7,576.
And I think I saw 7 people in the stands after the lightning delay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're probably right about that.
Who has a lightning delay? That was crazy. So,
I don't know. I mean, unless Storm
we were kids, we were out there playing in it. What's wrong with these people?
I mean, unless you see Yahweh and Baal fighting in the sky, there's no reason to stop the football game.
And by the way, the announcer that also was the one that stated that the team with the fewest points at the end of the game is the loser.
Thank God we got that clarity.
Did he just say that?
That is the kind of insight we need on the Lipp Men on the UFL.
I thought the team with less points won. I mean,
who knew?
News to me.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was golf. What was the handicap? Book, Glenn, see if you can book him as a guest. I mean, these UFL people
looking to see if you get players.
Yeah, they
starting with the wife first. So going back to my home.
So Matt Corral was the starting quarterback, as we mentioned. I think I would have stayed with Martinez. I'm not going to blame the game on Matt Corral, but I just think with Martinez, they're more dynamic. There was a big goal line fumble recovery by DC. I'm sorry. Yeah, by DC. And then Rohard, who I'd never heard of before, caught a touchdown pass. And guess what happened afterwards? A missed extra point. Then there was a second fumble recovered by DC in the red zone. But Birmingham's defense held up, and DC, and then there was
Oh,
sort
and
of
did you just say you never heard of the guy that caught the touchdown? You're talking about Chris Rowland, the guy that had a huge touchdown last week.
yeah. Well, I wrote down Rohard, so instead of Roland, so
It's
or
okay. Because that guy, Chris Rowland's been making plays left and right the last 2 weeks. So don't disrespect Chris Rowland, number 12.
No, it's my handwriting. My handwriting is abysmal. It actually looks like herd or hard. It looks nothing like land. This is absurd. So all right. So there was a knockdown, a rule knockdown by contact.
Is this fighting?
You would think so. And there was official review, and they overturned it. There was a key defensive stop, and then DC absolutely smothered a punt attempt. I mean, they smelled this. They destroyed it. It's like a guy wasn't touched at all. There was missed coverage. I don't know what, but this guy walked in, and they absolutely killed the guy. But they did almost nothing with it. Actually, they did nothing with it. And that led to Birmingham going down the field and throwing a TD pass to Amari Rogers, who has been, intermittently in and out of, games being called, and of course a mixed extra point. So at this point we're at 6-6 when I assumed it was the half, but it wasn't, because the games had switched. It was because of this rain delay, lightning delay. So I'm watching a bunch of the San Antonio, Michigan game, which is good because you and I were going to try and divide the games up. But frankly, I don't know what was playing in your market, and I was just hoping it would be different than my market. But they showed us a bunch of the highlights, and then they played the game live. So we're not going to skip to that at this point in time. I'm going to come back to the Birmingham game after the half, or it wasn't quite after the half yet. And then DC scores a touchdown, but then Birmingham scores as well, but Birmingham misses their extra point. So at this point, or they go for 2 and they miss that. So it's 15-14, or they only go for 1, I guess. Oh no, they would go for 8. Sorry. DC must have got a couple field goals. So it was 15-4, and this is all very confusing because of the.
And there was a safety mixed in there as well. I mean, on a bad snap for the punt, and the punter just fell. I mean, that was a sloppy game.
Very sloppy, and my notes are even sloppier than usual because there's another game like in the middle of the page, because that's how I do things, because I think that when I see my handwriting, I'll recognize it, even though every week I prove that that's not the case. So we get a field goal with under 4 minutes left, and it's 17-15 Birmingham at this point. Then there's another big kickoff return to the 48-yard line, which leads to a field goal, which, that's DC's sort of the lesson of DC is they don't make touchdowns. They make field goals mostly. And as you said, there's a safety in there. So like their defense is doing their part, and their special teams are doing their part. And so you think it's going to be the end, but no. There's 1 minute left, and Birmingham just marches down the field, and they kick a field goal. With like 2 seconds, they work the clock, and with 2 seconds left, they kick a field goal, and the game ends at 18-20. So Birmingham slips out of Birmingham, a home game, with the weather and all that, with the win against a stout and tough DC, which, I mean, for 2-2, I'd say they're better than 2-2, but a tough game. I guess these are the wins you need to have, but I was not overly impressed by Birmingham here, and DC continues not to convert in the red zone, but they're not a team that should be slept
on. DC?
DC.
They're always defending.
They are. They're the DC Defenders. I mean, it's truth in advertising.
And I'll keep sleeping on them, but if it's my turn to talk about the game here, I think I have a couple things to say, and we'll start on the Birmingham side. And yeah, they won, but little confusing. I mean, I understand the Corral decision. I mean, he's a pedigreed player, good quarterback, but Adrian Martinez just played amazing for you. He threw over 300 yards, ran for 60 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he had a great game for you. And I understand that they're saying, oh, we want to get both guys some playing time so that way they can get some film for the NFL. Like, I understand this is a developmental league and you're trying to send your guys to the league. I mean, you're not here to retain players year after year. I mean, they're looking for a payday, but we're here to get wins. And they were lucky to get this win. I mean, without the safety, they're not winning that game. And so Adrian Martinez played so well, and you're just going to bench him for Matt Corral. And then after the game, they're going to be like, oh, I'm not sure who to start. No, you know exactly who to start. I mean, you're going to start Adrian Martinez, the guy who can actually move the ball up and down the field for you. And Matt Corral, I mean, it's not all blame on him. I mean, the rain, I'm sure, played a bit of it. But it looked like they were trying to do some hard-nosed running plays with 2 running backs and some options. And I saw 2 different times, I think, where they muffed those for fumbles. And there was another play where the snap count was all messed up and he dropped the snap. And that's another one. I mean, it didn't work. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they tried to fix something that was working, and they barely got out of DC alive. And I don't think DC is a very good team. But before we go there, Jay Sternberger, again, he played great. I mean, they don't throw him the ball enough, but when he gets the ball, he's all over the play. And he's also another one of those tight ends that you see active on special teams. So I really like the game with Jay Sternberger. And I hope he stays vocal on Twitter, and I hope he gets this opportunity in the NFL because he's putting in all the work to get there. And I think, again, CJ Marable, he ran the ball hard. He was an impact player out of the passing game for them. So I think they need to find ways to get him the ball. And I think he's really taken the step forward to be their running back 1 this year. And then Amari Rodgers, he's a guy that I've been saying week after week, I want to see him more involved. And he made some big plays this week, and he's not just doing it in a return game. He's doing it out of the slot, and he's using his speed and his shiftiness, and he's got good hands. So I want to continue to see him do it more. And while we're talking Birmingham, because really I don't have too much else to say about their team, but their kicker went down. They didn't have Chris Blewett. He blew it. And they won the game with Ramiz Ahmed, whoever the hell that guy is. He went 4 for 4 for field goals. And because of him, they were able to win the game. Or maybe it was 3 for 3. But regardless, he didn't miss a field goal. He made one in the clutch. And they won the game. And like you said, they were lucky. I think that they're the better team 9 times out of 10 against DC. And I think that this almost was that one time. But in fairness, DC scored with about 2 minutes left. And they kicked a field goal of their own. And they just left too much time on the clock. And with that I guess it's that long kickoff, there's short field almost every play. So I think no game's over till it's over. And that's where I'll leave it with Birmingham, because for DC, they're so frustrating to me. I don't think they're solid. I think they suck. You have talent. You have all the talent. And your best player is a guy you just signed a few days ago. I mean, on offense, the only guy that was really making plays for them, besides Kelvin Harmon had a great game, was Zakondre White. I've never heard of this guy, and he's running the ball. Okay.
Conjuring? He belongs on the para or normal guys, Mr. Conjuring.
Zaquandre. But
well, that's not good.
But my guy Zaquandre, I mean, okay, when he was running in power formations, he wasn't as effective. But in the shotgun, I mean, he was using his speed and getting big gains. And I think they used him in the pass game a little bit. So I was impressed by him. And Chris Rowland did what he does. I mean, he makes big plays when nobody expects it. You can't get his name right. And like I said,
Rohard?
Yeah, Rohard. I mean,
and you know what? You know why I'm upset? I still miss Isaac Darkangelo.
Maybe he'll get picked up with all these injuries.
I hope so.
I mean, we'll keep praying. Maybe he's in the CFL now. You never know. But I don't know. I think Kelvin Harmon played well. I think they finally got him the ball, and he showed why he was a big physical receiver coming out of NC State and why he had the NFL potential he had. And he's another guy that I think might get an opportunity after this season's over. But I mean, there's a play where Gary and Conley recovered a fumble and ended up taking it back to the house, and he was down because a fingertip touched him, and DJ Swearinger made a big play in the game too. I mean, yeah, their defense is honestly really good. I mean, they probably have the best secondary in the league, but their pass rush is meh. I mean, they scheme their pass rush. I haven't really seen any guys one-on-one beating offensive linemen. It's a lot of when they get pressure, it's because they're blitzing, which no problem with that. I love a team that blitzes, but I'm not sold on DC. I wanted to be higher on DC. I had liked Jordan Teamu coming into the year, but he doesn't look comfortable when pressure is getting to him, and I think they got a lot of pressure to him, Birmingham. And I just don't know. Cameron Harris, I don't think I've seen it carry more than 5 yards. I mean, I don't mean to be so negative and to crap on them, but I think they're in the gutter right now. I mean, they just, I don't know. They seem like they're stuck in the mud, if you ask me.
I mean, I can't praise them too much, but there are worse teams. At least I think so. Anyway.
I can agree with that, but I think that they're one of the worst teams.
I think that if we ever get Patreon levels, one has to be called the Shea Asylum. And then we can call like the upper tier the Jake Asylum. And then I don't know what we call one that's for me if we ever get to an upper tier, but Jeff Penitentiary.
I realize we'll have to do NFL next, and then college football and NFL next. So y'all have your
but listen, we've made deals with you, so we're in on those things. We may need a little help on the college ball. So if anyone out there wants to audition, you can send your audition tapes to Glenn.
BobbyDizzle.com. He's the Alabama guy. BobbyDizzle.com.
And we do accept bribes and all sorts of other unethical things because this is podcasting and there really aren't any ethics. So
hey, Shay is actually,
for the record, I have ethics.
Huh? She's what?
She's setting us up a store. So she's
great.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, listen. The first merch should be called, the Lipp Men on UFL. Welcome to the Shea Asylum.
That's right. Are the Paranormal Attorney, one or the other. I don't know which. So
that's not our merch. That's my merch. Come on. I mean, it won't sell. It'll sell 3 shirts, but
it'll be all you.
all 3 sizes he wants to get.
That's right. It'll be, that's right. It'll be all me now. I was gonna say it'd be my mother, but it probably will all be me. Now that you mentioned,
you'll probably buy one for
her. Yeah, she wouldn't wear a T-shirt. Come on.
But hey, Grandma.
Right. Maybe if I put if we had a Chanel symbol on it in the right place, maybe then. Or what's the brand that's so fancy they don't put their name on? Is it? It's not Balenciaga. It's like Birkins, but I don't know if they only make like handbags. But so they're so fancy they don't even bother with the name. Only like the super rich people recognize them and know what they are. So it's like one of those things that like you have to be in the club to even know that you're in the club.
Clearly, I'm not in the club yet because I'm lost.
The only reason I know about this club is because I watch The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, and I always have, and I always will. So that's how I know this. All right. So I'm sure that our UFL audience doesn't have a whole lot of crossover with The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but if you do, follow me on Icarus Fell MD, or if you really want to enjoy yourself, follow me at Evil Dose and Garden of the Dune, because I have had a 4-day run that is crazy. And everyone's like, you're grifting. I'm like, grifting? The only thing I'm getting out of this is carpal tunnel syndrome. What are you talking about? It's like grifting. Do I have to make $1 for something to be grifting? Anyway, enough about my adventures in Twitter, which isn't a thing. It's called X. So anyway, listen, I didn't see the entire San Antonio game, but I can tell you that San Antonio beat Michigan, and I formally said that Michigan was the second most complete team, or might have been the second most complete team that I had seen. They obviously weren't here in San Antonio. San Antonio has sort of given up on because they're a little bit unpredictable. They played well, not great, well with their backup quarterback. And I know people out there saying EJ Perry got hurt, and that's the reason why Michigan played. No, he got hurt deep into the third quarter. So it was already 16-3 at that point. And
games are won and lost in the fourth quarter.
Well, that's true, but they were already behind is the only point making. And Etling, who came in for Perry, did throw a touchdown almost immediately to make it 19-9. Of course, he then also threw an interception, and San Antonio ended. Yeah, he fumbled too. Yeah, I mean, he was very backup quarterific. I'm just saying that EJ Perry wasn't handling the game much better before that happened. I hope it's not too serious because EJ Perry, despite not having a great game and San Antonio playing a pretty good game, not impressive though. 19-9, not exactly an exciting game, but still nothing's out of hand. Without that interception, who knows? I I picked San Antonio, so I picked Michigan, so this was obviously a loss for me. Jake, you picked San Antonio.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about our text conversation where I asked if I could switch my pick because that never happened.
I don't know what you're talking about. And San Antonio, pretty good crowd. I mean, 11,251. So West Texas, basically matched all of Central and East Texas combined. Not exactly, I'm exaggerating, but Texas, honestly, Texas, you have 3 teams in this league, and all 3 of you combined are beat by St. Louis, which,
week after week.
Yeah. And St. Louis is a major league town, but Houston's a bigger major league town. And football is more of a Texas sport than a Missouri sport. I'm no offense to Missouri, but when you think of Texas, you think of Texas, you think of Oklahoma, you think of Alabama, you think of Florida. I'm not saying that the Mizzou hasn't had its days and things like that, but it's I know Kansas City is in St. Louis, but that's a professional team, and it's a whole different game. Anyway, good on you, San Antonio, for 11,251. Let's see if you can double it. I mean, you only have the Spurs. Yeah, absolutely. The weather's getting nicer. Your team is interesting. I mean, I'm not ready to say that they're good, but they're interesting. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get each week. So I don't have much to say about this game because I was confused for the first 4 minutes, figuring out why am I seeing different uniforms? What the heck is going on here? And then realizing it wasn't highlights and it was live. I just saw it was halftime highlights. So, I had a rough weekend. I don't even want to talk to you about why, but rough weekend, and watching these games on the couch, riding sideways, didn't do me any favors or you any favors. So I'm going to turn it over to Jake because the quality is about to be leveled up.
Well, I try my best, and I was missing Anthony McFarland this week, the University of Maryland product, and you didn't mention Maryland as a hotbed for football. I mean, Maryland, low-key, is up there in the top 10 for athletes that they're putting into the college ranks. So that's a big-time football state as well. Shout out to the Owensville Eagles. But with that said, I actually was very impressed with Quentin Dormady. I got his stats here. He was 23 of 37, so that's about 62%. And he threw for 269 yards, a touchdown, an interception. I mean, for a backup quarterback, missing his starting running back, I thought he played a great game. John Lovett, they finally got my boy Lovett listed the ball, and he did pretty well. I mean, he ran hard. He was involved in the passing game, and I think especially since they didn't have, oh, God, what in the world? We're making underwear now?
Yep, that's going on the screen.
Yep, I mean, wow, that got my attention, so it got everybody else's attention. And if you're watching right now, thank you. I mean, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, baseball. I mean, there's a lot going on. So thanks for spending some time with us today. But
Monday Night Raw is about to start. They're going to queen a new WWE Women's Champion and a Battle Royal lazy booking, but it's still going to happen.
Yeah, and with all that said, I mean, let's talk about that Quentin Dormady to Marquez Stevenson connection. They played together in college. Now they're together in the UFL. And what's impressive is Stevenson kind of made a couple little big plays. He got a couple third down conversions. He made a nice kick return like he always does week after week, but he wasn't even their leading receiver. I mean, between Jontre Kirkland and Justin Smith, they had over 200 receiving yards, just those two players. They each had over 100 yards. I'm fairly certain that's the first game that teammates have had 100 yards receiving in the same game, which to me was extremely impressive. And you've got a guy in Quentin Dormady who's not afraid of the moment, which I really liked. I mean, he was fearless, and I thought that they played well considering the circumstances. And I don't really have too much to say about their defense. I really have nothing to say about their defense. They held them to 9 points. I mean, that's a great game. And we've kind of said it week after week that this is kind of what we're coming to expect. I mean, these teams all have good defenses, and Michigan kind of has one of the ones that we've been saying probably is one of the most stout, and they even held San Antonio, who was able to throw the ball all over the field, to only 19. So I think that shows you partially the level of sloppiness that happened in this game and partially the high level of defense that's going on in this league. And I think when you look at Michigan, I mean, yeah, their defense played well. And I mean, Kainaku had an amazing interception in the end zone, and Breland Speaks had a couple big plays, and whatever, they had their plays. But I'm enamored by EJ Perry, and it's very sad to see him get hurt. I mean, this is a guy who he's able to run with the ball and make plays, and he makes good decisions when he throws the ball. And he's a tough SOB. I mean, when he went down, like the commentary was like, oh, he pulled his hamstring, it popped, and he kept playing. And it took until the end of the series for him to come off. And even then, he tried to run off the field, and you could tell he was in pain. So
yeah, he jogged off the field. I was wondering what he was thinking.
And I'm thinking,
I thought he would just come back. I thought he would sit out for one play and come back. But what do you think went wrong with Michigan's offense, who has been competent? Very few of these teams have great offenses, but they've been competent, and they just weren't. What do you think happened? What went wrong?
I think first you give credit to San Antonio, and then I think second, they're missing that outside receiver threat. I mean, you were talking about trading with St. Louis earlier. I mean, they're a team that could really use it. Their number one receiver, Trey Quinn, is mainly a slot guy, and they're kind of having to use him out on the edge. And Marcus Sims had a good touchdown at the end, but it was kind of garbage time, so it doesn't really matter. But he's a big play receiver, but they're missing that go-to bigger target. And their running game, I mean, we talked about Colburn playing well last week, and he played decent this week, but their running game just isn't there enough for them. And I think they probably were too caught up in the fact that they were down. They keep trying with the running game and finding new ways to innovate and utilize it. So their offense just is a little one-dimensional with EJ Perry, because it kind of just becomes him dropping back and being forced to make a tight window throw or take off.
I guess that's what you meant when you're saying the teams are starting to have an identity. And for Michigan, maybe it's too predictable. Maybe their competence was consistency, and the consistency makes it easier for defenses to scheme against you.
Yeah, and nothing against Danny Etling. I think he's been very inconsistent for them in the few times that he's played. I think he's kind of come into every single game at this point, because it seems like EJ Perry gets hurt every single game, and he finds a way to come back in, and I hope he's able to keep playing. But this injury kind of seemed the most serious, and so I think we'll have to see what Danny Etling can do. I don't know if he really fits their offense that great, and I think they have Brian Lewerke, who former Michigan State quarterback, and I think he might be a guy, a local boy that can come in and make an impact. But it's going to be interesting to see what their quarterback situation is like, and they're going to be a team that's going to win their games off defense this point forward, unless if their offense can prove us otherwise. And right now, their offense seems stagnant.
I know coaches don't necessarily think this way, but if you have a Michigan State guy and it's close and you're in Michigan and you're struggling to sell tickets, you may want to put him in the game. That might be the tiebreaker, just to get some Michigan State fans in there and friends and family and whatever, just to fill the place up and do $10 tickets or something. But
I believe he was inactive this week, so who knows what they see in him, or maybe they don't see anything in him. You never know.
Right, but I mean, you can only have so many players active, and if you feel like you have your starting quarterback locked down, and three quarterbacks is sort of an emergency situation anyway. Let's go to our last game of the week, which is
I've been waiting all day for this one.
Yeah, this is the game where, listen, if this is the only UFL game you've ever watched, please don't hold it against the league. However the other games may have sound, they're at least interesting. They're exciting. They're fighting. This game was just ugh. This was the Arlington Renegades versus Houston. Arlington famously went to the championship game last year with a 4-6 record. They come in 0-3. Houston also comes in 0-3. So this is the battle of the winless teams. Am I right about that?
Yes, they were both winless, and now there's one team winless.
And now Houston managed to scare up an attendance of 7,179. Again, Texas, I don't know. I really thought that, I mean, with all the people you're complaining about coming over your border, just give them tickets to the football game. I mean, it can be like that movie Sea of Love. At least you can find them around them up if that's what you're looking to do. But maybe you fill in the stadium. I don't know. Some guy was telling me, and Norm Kaiser, I'm sorry, I have to call you out, but on the Everything Football group, because he's always got something smart, and he blamed it on the beer prices being too much, $12. I'm sorry. You're going to a football game to watch football. If you need to go to the football game for the price of beer, you might have a drinking problem, or you don't know what tailgating is. And he's like, Fox owns the team. They can definitely have lower beer prices. I'm like, first of all, Fox doesn't own the team. They're 50% owner of the league. It's very clear that The Rock is his group is the managing ownership of the league. But even if that's the case, you lease space in stadiums. The stadiums are owned either by a city or some sort of organization. The stadium has leases with vendors, and those vendors pay rent. And most of those leases and stadiums require that you are open when the stadium is open, whether you want to be or not. So you have to have prices so that you can pay that rent. I'm sure that they would love to drop their prices to $6.50 if they thought that they would sell to 7,000 people and sell them 4 beers. But they can't do that on their own. It has to be approved by the stadium authority, who, by the way, once that happens, all 8 of the stadiums really have to do the same thing. And why wouldn't vendors ask for that in other games too, or other low attendance things? It's one of those things where you don't make the rule because you don't make an exception to destroy the rule because the rule is working well. So I'm sorry, Mr. Kaiser, that's just not the way the world works. And I'm sorry that the price of beer was too high for you. Beer stinks anyway, generally. I mean, you're getting the worst beers in the world out of a football stadium. You get Bud Light and Coors Light. Come on. It's not like you're getting the Stone Cold's Broken Skull Ranch beer. Give me a hell yeah if you want some Broken Skull beer. Actually, I've never had it. Sorry, Stone Cold. Anyway, what were we talking about again? Oh yeah, the game.
Football game.
Right, that's it. So this is Arlington. Luis Perez, ballyhooed quarterback. Reed Sinnett getting his start for Houston. So terrific. Arlington has a very early, or gives up a very early fumble recovery, which gets a fumble recovery, which they turn into a field goal. Again, that's the same old story. Big play, field goal. And then Perez, basically Reed Sinnett throws an interception, and Perez also throws an interception after his wide receiver slips. So this one probably wasn't on him. It wasn't a very good pass to begin with. We get an interception in the red zone, which on Houston's side, which they only turn into 3 points as well. So it's 3-3 at this point. There's an interception, which the Arlington coaches challenge and lost the challenge rather. So they had no more timeouts for the rest of the game. This is in the first half, over a bizarre coaching choice. So it seems like, is this Stoops? Is he the coach of this team?
We're talking Houston?
Arlington.
I'm going to confirm for you in a second. Yes, you're right. Yes. Stoops and Chuck Long.
Yeah. So that was a bad call. And last week we had a minor disagreement that you think Stoops is a good coach. I think he was a good coach in college and hasn't really done anything outside of college. And he benefited from that Oklahoma tradition and that wishbone and just power football. But anyway, that we don't need to rehash that because this was a battle of not very good coaches. Anyway, on the Houston side, Butler had a TD catch, and they actually converted a 2-point conversion. You had Thompson, who had a rush TD, but of course a missed extra point, which tends to be the point, the usual routine here. Arlington did have a TD catch by Burnett, of course, mixed extra point. And this game quickly went from 11-3 to 17-3 to 17-9. Houston also lost a challenge on a pass interference call, which again was a strange thing to try to challenge that there wasn't a pass interference penalty, and they lost a timeout and all challenges. But they still had a timeout left. We're in the fourth quarter, and apparently Arlington is 0-3 when they're ahead in the fourth quarter. They have lost the prior 3 games when they were ahead in the fourth quarter, which is not so unusual in this league, but seems like an unusual stat generally. So they're actually not ahead. They're behind this league, this game going into the fourth quarter. So will their fates turn? Well, maybe Houston does their part to help them by having a missed field goal early on. But then we have Perez. He's the victim of drop passes, not just in this drive or this quarter, but the whole game. There were a ton of drop passes. He also had some bad passes. There were some dopey penalties, not called dopey penalties, in like bad timing and penalties that didn't need to happen on Arlington's place, and bad challenges. And this game was dreary, and it ended at 17-9. I guess technically not out of hand because it's just an 8-point game. But, I mean, I didn't feel like anybody had a chance to score 8 points. I didn't feel like I wanted to see any more football drives. This, yeah, like I said, dreary.
You say dismal football. I say defense, baby. Let's go. Yeah, that game was really rough to watch. I do like how Reed Sinet's been playing quarterback for Houston, and I think that they have a difference maker, and I'm surprised you failed to mention it. Mark Thompson, he former Florida running back, he returned from injury. This was his first game, and this is actually a similar narrative for them because last season he didn't start the season healthy, came back, and they won 4 games straight and made it to the playoffs and started a little bit of a run. So Mark Thompson might be their good luck charm. I think he had 10 carries for about 34, 35 yards. After the game, they said that he was on a snap count, and Mark Thompson, he's a guy that I think they are going to look to use a lot more. And Reed Sinet, he didn't have any interceptions this week. He didn't get over 200 passing yards, but he was smart with the ball for as much time as he had with it. And yeah, I mean, there's not too much to talk about when it's offense. I mean, TJ Pleasure, that's my guy. He had a decent game. He's going to have a lot of snaps get taken away from Mark Thompson. And Brandon Bowman, the tight end, he actually had a good game for them. He made a couple of different plays for them down the stretch. I think J.J. Molson, the kicker there, he's been having a great year. He took a little bit of a step back. And
Molson's a good beer.
I mean, I thought you just said beer sucks.
Well, there are exceptions to every rule.
Okay. Well, in the name of things sucking, Arlington. I've been wanting Luis Perez to succeed all year. And I've probably been the first one to say, let's not see this 2-quarterback thing. Let's let Luis Perez get in the rhythm. I might change my narrative, and I don't like it. I don't know if you can see the regret and remorse in my voice, but I think it's time to give Lindsey Scott a chance. I mean, you drafted him number 1 in the draft. Use him. I mean, and you mentioned it. Bob Stoops had his most success as a power running team. Well, let's modernize that running game. He's a running quarterback. Let's use a lot of the options. Let's use a lot of those wishbone concepts, but just don't do it under center. And let's see what this guy's got. I mean, there's a reason why he went number 1 in the draft. You picked him because you didn't want anybody else to have him. So let's show why you took him. I mean, and I don't think he's been perfect when he's come in, but I mean, they could not find a way to get Tyler Vaughns the ball this week. Deontay Burnett, who looks like a running back wearing number 21, he actually had a great game as a receiver, his best game yet, and he made a couple of really nice catches, a couple over-the-shoulder passes from Luis Perez, but there were some ducks that Luis Perez threw out there. And again, I don't want to be harsh, but their wide receivers they're not the St. Louis wide receivers, so you can't have a guy that is struggling to get them the ball and expecting them to make all the plays in the world. I mean, you've seen them make some plays, but let's find a way to get them open. Let's give another threat for defenses to guard and change their philosophy. Let's change things up. And I think this is a team that you're going to see make these changes. I mean, Arlington is not supposed to be an 0-4 team. They were supposed to be one of the best teams in the league. So if it's not next week, it's got to be the week after. I mean, I wouldn't know what they're doing if they don't make this switch at quarterback. And I don't have much nice to say about their defense or the rest of their offense. So I'll just go ahead and say Marquette King, the former NFL punter. He's a very entertaining guy. I mean, he had a couple boomers that they got some airtime, they got some distance on them, and they helped change field position. And that's really the nicest, best thing that I saw coming out of this game in my analysis. I mean, there's a reason why they're 0-4. And I just don't understand why they haven't made any changes yet, because it just seems like they're running into a brick wall game after game after game.
Yeah. I know that everyone loves Luis Perez. I'm not ready to say that it's all him, but I'm not ready to say it's not him either. He didn't throw the ball very well. I mean, it's like strange. Like they seem okay except for on the outside, but you can't win football games if you have no outside game unless you've got Jerome Bettis, running up the middle there for you, getting 5 to 7 yards every single time. And they don't. No team does. Sailors is the closest thing. Maribel maybe on some games, but those are the only 200-yard rushing guys in the entire league. The reason I didn't mention the other guy, Thompson, is because I leave the positive stuff about the player name and the stats to you. I mean that's your forte. I'm Mr. Doom and Gloom generally. This is not a good team, and they weren't supposed to be an 0-4 team, but in fact they are an 0-4 team, and I can see why. And Houston has a good defense. They don't have a very good offense. Reed Sinnett wasn't lighting the world on fire. He reminds me a little bit of Matt Corral, but I think Matt Corral is better, but he just might have better players around him, and so you never know. In any event, the less said about this game, the better. I'm prepared to be done with it and just say, Houston, you got to win. Good for you. Arlington, the problem moves to you. I mean, if I'm Stoops, I agree with you. I would put Lindsey Scott in there. Probably a lot of people say wait for game 5. I don't know. The team doesn't seem to have any energy, and I think they took it for granted that they were good also. And they're just not that good, or the other teams weren't as bad as they thought. I don't know.
And I think you said it before. It's a pretty level playing field. All the teams have good defenses. So can you get your offense to stand out?
Yeah. All right. So I think you did better this week. I think you did 3-1 this week. I think I did 2-2. And frankly, just by luck of Birmingham squeaking out, thanks DC for blowing it. I will say this. It's your fault I picked Arlington because you talked me into it. I really wanted to go with Houston. I was smelling an upset, but it's not your fault. It's my fault because I'm a grown man and I could have made my own call. And I could have went on it. So while I blame you, it's not really you. It's me.
Well, Arlington was the only game I got wrong, so we can be on that ship together.
We are, and that's sweet. My really hot bragging streak is over with just a very mid 2-2. You can't get any midder than 2-2. I believe for the season, since we're sort of discounting week 1, I think even including it, I think we are now have exactly the same records in our picks.
Yep. Which is kind of impressive, and I think we've been on the same side of about 2/3 of the picks. So, I mean, we're splitting it. We're splitting the ones that we're split on, and we're getting them right when we align. So do we move into week 5?
I think we should. I just want to say one thing to the folks. Typically, things like the injury reports and the ratings seem to be coming out on Tuesdays, and sometimes the injury is a little bit later. So there's going to be news during the week, but just like this week, we'll be a few days behind. But if you are a casual fan, then you'll find it out from us. If you're a rabid fan, you'll hear it twice. What can I say? Let's go into week 5, the official midway point. We crossed the Mississippi.
Yeah, and so we've got 2 games Saturday night at 7 p.m., which really is just questionable to me. And without going on a tangent, there's professional basketball playoffs, NHL playoffs. The UFC is on at 7. I mean, there's so much stuff in baseball. There's so much stuff going on at 7. Like
that is not a tangent. That is entirely appropriate.
Yeah, I just don't. I'm not their schedule makers. I don't decide what's on Fox and whatnot. It just makes no sense.
Afternoon. Is there anything going on in the afternoons?
And there's a lot less. And I know they have day-long basketball and day-long hockey, but if you're going to throw 2 games on simultaneously, I mean, nowadays with YouTube TV and all these other services, people are doing multi-view anyway. So throw it on when these games are going on, separate the 2 games, and let people put the UFL on one side of their screen and the NBA playoffs on the other. I mean, I just feel like they're limiting their audience by doing what they're doing.
Yeah, they're split it in half. I mean, so again, it's way too early in this league's history to be splitting your audience in half on purpose, unless they really aren't all that concerned about it this year. They've already sold all those ad spots, and maybe they are. Maybe everybody is committed to a 3 to 5 year plan, but that's very unusual in TV for you to have everyone committed to anything. If something else that's cheaper or better comes out, I mean, there could be a professional pickleball league, which is something I didn't hear of until about a year ago. And right, so and since it's so popular, maybe they'll put that on Saturday afternoons, and they figure they can, pay a whole lot less for it and get 412,000 people to watch it. And since they pay 1/3 of the amount, that's good enough.
Yeah, and that's definitely something I can see being a possibility. But with all that said, we'll talk about game one in Arlington, Texas. Our favorite team, the Arlington Renegades, are taking on the San Antonio Brahmas, 7 p.m. Fox Sports. I'll start here. I don't care who's at quarterback. I hope they put Lindsey Scott in because I think that makes it a little bit more of an interesting game. I even think if Luis Perez plays, they keep it somewhat close. But give me the Brahmas. I like Dormady. I thought he actually played very well. I like the Brahmas defense. I like Wade Phillips' swag as he came off the field celebrating his win. Give me Wade Phillips. Give me the Brahmas. I think it'll be a close game, but for purposes of predictions, give me the Brahmas like 23 to like 14, something like that. They'll win by a little bit more than a score.
I don't understand the Brahmas. I just don't. But I do understand the Renegades, and they're just bad. I'm going to go with the Brahmas also. Home doesn't mean anything in this league except for St. Louis.
Agreed. And so as we move to the next game, sharing the same state, the same time slot, and the same network, 7 p.m. Fox Sports in Houston, Texas, we've got the Birmingham Stallions visiting the Houston Roughnecks. Take it away.
I'm going to go with Birmingham. They eked out a win against DC. DC and Houston are extremely similar teams. DC is a little bit better than Houston, maybe more than a little bit. And I think Birmingham learned their lesson. I don't know if they're going to pull the trigger on putting Martinez back in there. I strongly advise it if anyone is listening to me. But just sneaking out of DC, you should listen to yourself. I mean, I don't think Corral's a bad quarterback, neither do you. But Martinez adds a dimension to this team to make it an exciting offense in this league. They have everything else going for you, and you have a dynamic quarterback instead of sort of a guy who's a prototypical sort of statue of a quarterback. And you have a tough defense who, they just got to win, so they're probably, feeling their oats a little bit now, and they're going to be coming after you. I have Martinez who can run and can make plays with his legs and his arms. So I would go with Martinez. But no matter who's behind the center, or I'm going to go with Birmingham on this one and have them continue. Go, stupid little donkey horse logo. I can't believe this is the shirt I bought.
I mean, it's a stallion.
I mean, if this was a stallion that showed up at Pimlico or the Preakness or I think they would just shoot it on site and turn it into paintbrushes and glue.
Well, you know what? You bought the T-shirt, so I hope you like your money spent.
I don't. This was. I mean, listen, for these stupid jokes at my own expense, yes, it was well worth it.
Well, with that said, let's make some more jokes. I'm actually surprised with the way I'm leaning here. And I do think Adrian Martinez starts at quarterback. I don't think it takes much of a football mind to put him in at quarterback. I mean, if I'm seeing it, someone else has got to see it. And hopefully that someone else is the one coaching them every day in practice. But I don't know. There's something about the narrative of Mark Thompson coming back. There's something about Reed Sinnett that I just like. He does just enough. He's not perfect, but he does just enough to keep them in the game. There's something about that defense. And I think that they're going to be the betting underdog. It's not a gambling show. We don't talk gambling. Who gambles? But it's legal nowadays, and it's right on the broadcast for everybody to see. So
constantly.
It's there the whole game. And I fully expect.
They're pushing the gambling. They're basically like, light up America, smoke cigarettes. Go ahead, gamble. And try crack while you're there.
There's phases in this country, and right now we're in the gambling phase, I guess. But with that said, I'll take the probable betting underdog. I'll take the Houston Roughnecks. There's just something I'm smelling here, and I do think Birmingham is probably the better team, but I just have a gut intuition. I'm going to stick with it.
Okay, it's your upset special. All right, very good.
And so with that said, we move to Sunday. They're finally splitting up the games here at noon. On ESPN, we have the St. Louis Battlehawks going in to the DC Defenders home. And I'll go first here. I'm fairly certain you're going to side with me here, but you've been a fan of DC more than I have. They are hot garbage. St. Louis is the best team in the league. They're going to push them in the trash compactor and smash on them. I'm going to go with another, we'll call this game like 60-6 again, because I just don't see a way that St. Louis loses this game.
I don't see DC beating St. Louis. St. Louis is too complete. DC is a tough team, but I don't think that necessarily makes them a good team. It might make them good enough in the UFL. I don't think it's going to be a smashing. DC is at home. They do have a tough defense, but I could see, 27-22, something like that, or 27-18 or 19. DC seems to get weird score numbers, and this league has weird score numbers. By the way, this extra point thing, I really think they have to take a look at something. It was supposed to make the game more interesting, and it's not. The 4th and 12 thing, I think, is a winner when you're behind in the fourth quarter. I think that's interesting, but I don't know what you do. I don't know if you have to say the defense has to be like a half a yard off the line. I don't know if you say the defense has to play with 10 players instead of 11. I just have no idea. But this missing extra points, it's not fun. It's just sad.
And it just ruins the momentum. You score a touchdown, then you miss the extra point, and then your momentum's gone.
Right. Exactly right. So
I'll agree with you there. I'd like to see the traditional extra point, and maybe they can put a spin off in making a 2-point and a 3-point, but maybe the 1 point just becomes a traditional extra point. There's definitely got to be a way to do it. And I agree, though, on the onside kick, the 4th and 12 thing. Like, I would almost say make it no stipulations. You can be winning or losing, and it can be at any point in time in the game. That gives added excitement. But I agree with you. Extra point's a little bit, it's a little wacky.
The extra point thing is Larry David's fault. He called The Rock and said, I hate extra points and I hate the goalposts. And he got the extra point, but not the goalposts.
Well, the field goal kickers are stealing the show. Shout out Jake Bates. We haven't mentioned him all show, so shout out Jake Bates.
Well, he didn't kick a 97-yard field goal this week for the win.
Finally. They finally were able to get him off the field.
I think if you kick a field goal that's more than 50 yards or 55 yards, maybe they should make that a 6-point play.
Or maybe do it like fantasy football. 40-yard field goal equals 4, 50-yard field goal equals 5. But then that eliminates the point in going to score a touchdown. So that's kind of stupid. Let's revert that. Cut that part out then.
Okay, I would say after anything more than 55 yards, give them more points. Give them 5 points. I don't know. Maybe not a full touchdown, but
or maybe 4. The way that they score here, you can do whatever you want. But with all that,
4.5. Who cares about it? This league is so weird. 4.5. Why not?
The betting odds were not like that.
Well, this isn't all about. Oh, wait, yes, this is entirely all about betting. Every game they're constantly talking about betting. Halftime, pre-show, post-show, during the show, in the show, they're talking about the over constantly. These guys are betting with each other during the game as to who's going to make the over, not make the over. I've never seen so much encouragement for gambling outside of a casino.
Nowadays the casino's on the phone. Yeah,
I forgot what. Sorry, Glenn. What?
You forgot fantasy football. There's fantasy football for this league. So.
I know, but they're not even. But the league is actually pushing like regular gambling. They barely mention fantasy football. There is fantasy football, and some of the podcasts are talking about. But everyone's talking. Regular gambling, and I guess maybe I'm sounding a little bit judgy, but it's just people can do what they want, I suppose. But it's so much. It's like the whole games are advertising for gambling on the UFL.
You know who they're targeting, and I think that might be a way that they're able to stay sustainable by bringing in some of that income that way. But with all that said, I'll go back to my prediction. As the Dagestanis say, they're going to smash them with your whole finger point thing. I don't know why I just stole that from you. But we move to the last game of the week, 3 p.m. Fox Sports in Memphis, Tennessee. We have the Michigan Panthers visiting the Memphis Showboats. Take it away.
I think Memphis is the worst professional football team I've ever seen. I know that Michigan did not play well this week. I don't even care who their quarterback is this week. I don't care if it's Etling. I don't care if it's an elephant. I don't care if it's my deceased grandfather Jesse Essenfeld. Whoever is there, I think Michigan gets back on the winning ways. I don't know what the hell happened to them this past week, but they're a better team than this. But more importantly, Memphis can only be just good enough to not lose big, or just bad enough to lose any way they want. But whatever it is, things don't end for a win in Memphis. Like David Cohn or Mark Cohn, they're going to be walking in Memphis home alone, sad.
And, I wish I knew what was happening with Case Cookus. Because if I knew Case Cookus was playing, I think I would say Memphis here. And I agree. They might be the worst team in professional football of all time.
Case Cookus is being kicked in the tuchus.
There's something about Danny Etling that I really dislike, though. He doesn't seem to play comfortably. It's always a turnover. It's always a play that goes for a loss. And Danny Etling, I'm sure you're a cool guy. I'm sure we could be friends. Please don't take this the wrong way. But I don't like the way this team plays with Danny Etling. And I barely like the way that they play with EJ Perry, but EJ Perry can kind of sell me on it. But I just don't see EJ Perry playing this week. It looked like he tore his hamstring. I think they're going
to wife compared to EJ McCarron's.
I would think very different because AJ McCarron won 2 national championships at the University of Alabama.
Well, what did Case Cookus do? I mean, he was probably pretty good at, where'd he go, University of New Mexico or something?
Let me confirm that real quick, because I honestly, that sounds right, but I can't tell you off the top of my head.
I know one of these guys went to like
Northern Arizona University.
Yeah, I knew one of these guys went for North Arizona State or some, somewhere out there.
With that said, we talked about earlier how the Michigan's offense is struggling, and I think they're going to be on the struggle bus. I do think Memphis's defense, like everybody else's defense, is adequate. And I think that's all they're going to need. Give me a Vinny Papelli touchdown in a low-scoring game. Memphis Showboats win it. I think we're splitting 2 different picks this week, so this should be fun to see how the records turn out.
All right, they're going to showboat. They're going to show out. So, all right, that's great. Shay is going to make us some naughty merchandise. I think she might be sweet on you. I don't know how old she is or if she's single. I know how old you are, and I think you're single. So,
as far as I know, I'm single.
Yeah, well, there. I see. I was right. I know how old I am, and I'm definitely not single. So there we go. Glenn, how about you?
Well, I wasn't really on board with the underwear, but it seems to be a thing. She sent me pictures all day of it, so.
Well, they can be boxers. Boxers are cool. I'm not suggesting we have tidy whities or anything. I
think they're boxer briefs. So.
Yeah, still better than tidy whities. I mean, at least in my. And I think the paranormal attorney is absolutely a winner for anything.
If she puts that on underwear, I'm sure somebody will buy it. So,
you think? I'm not so sure. That would be a paranormal customer. But hey, listen. If anyone buys underwear for the paranormal attorney, I will personally thank you.
Handwritten letters only.
That's it. You're gonna autograph.
Well, handwritten letter, you won't know what it says. I mean, I think that's been proved. You'll have no idea. It'd be like Akkadian. You'll need to run it through AI and see what it comes out as. No, I'll shout you out on the show, and then maybe we'll send you a little message on Twitter or something. Thanking you. If it's the paranormal attorney, we'll work it out though. If it's the Lipp Men on UFL, maybe Jake and I will sing a duet.
One on each. Never mind.
I don't know if anybody wants to hear or see any of this. So with that said, you can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Lippman. Yeah, that's all I've really got to plug out. So you guys do your thousands of plugs.
Here's the funny thing. This is a slow week for me because tonight I'm taking the night off from the Raw review, but you can watch it after 11 on Popular Review Wrestling. Thanks to those guys, they let us sit on their sports network for 4 weeks or whatever. And I have the week off on Toonie Talk Wrestling, but check that out also because John Draper from Sometimes Wrestling Soup, but also Spitball Media, which used to be known as Break the Apocalypse on. He's hysterical, does great impressions, and he's actually Kevin Castle's shoot brother, for those who don't know it. And for those who like some of the horror podcasts, his brother is Mike, and he's got a podcast, and they're all in the music or have been in the music scene in some way, shape, or form. So check out Toonie Time Wrestling. As far as me, there should be, I might drop a Garden Views midweek, but Glenn, you just had the guest on Friday, so maybe I'll wait another week. Who knows? But it's Mike Hammond, the Chicago homicide detective. I don't know what's going on with Garden of Doom. Maybe it's you folks, but whoever it is, I've gotten a big spike in listeners. So if it's you all, thank you. If it's not, check out Garden of Doom. Garden Views is on the same feed. I don't know if it's like 10 people just binge listening to. Because no show is particularly exceeding any other, and other shows are like gaining numbers, like old shows are gaining listens, like things that are like 3 years old are showing up in the top 30. But whoever you all are, enjoy. Whoever you aren't, get on board and enjoy. I promise you in Garden of Doom, no matter what you like, there's something there for you, and there's something that you're going to find that's new and learn that's new. Hammerlock Hangover, that's my wrestling podcast, wherever you can find podcasts. We just dropped an episode yesterday, or this morning maybe. And is this week the 27th?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, so the first episode of Garden of the Superior will be an Unpopular View Entertainment, either 11 or 11:30 a.m. And this show is going to be on Freya. And I've been doing a lot of research on Freya because I'm confused. Is Freya Frigg? And Freya has a twin brother, and I got confused about that. But after learning about Freya, the thing that came to mind was that Red Hot Chili Peppers album, Blood, Sex, Magic, and Sugar. So if that intrigues you, you want to learn about Freya, Vanir, maybe Odin's wife, maybe lots of people's wives, maybe Aphrodite, who knows? Find out. That's more than enough, I think, right? Twitter?
That's a lot.
At Eric Fell, I think I already said that. I think I already did my Twitters earlier. So, it's right under my head. It's right on my arm there, this one. So you think by now I would have this down where I would have my plug set up.
It takes time. It's
been over 4 years.
Here.
Yeah. Well, we will be back next week. So that's one place we forgot. Yeah, we're here. Same time, same place next week.
Thank God you guys are here.
7 p.m. Monday nights.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm a walk, just like the UFL, I'm a walk and fumble.
Well, if anybody's interested in finding me, which I highly doubt, Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm spending some classic rock. Sometimes, I've been actually kind of disco for a few days now.
Yeah.
Music director crazy. So you can find me on.
I have a trivia question, Glenn, for your. Let's see if you know this. Okay. Same song, two different groups did it. Major hit on the same album, and disco is your clue.
Oh, wow. I'd have to think about that. I don't know.
Saturday Night Fever, More Than a Woman, the Bee Gees, and Tavares on the same album. Both
you're right.
Major hits.
You're right. And that's where disco started. It was Saturday Night Fever.
That's a good trivia question, huh? You can use that. You can give that as a prize. Maybe some paranormal underwear.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on the paranormal underwear. But Tuesdays and Thursdays, www.thethinlinerockstation.com. That's public safety radio. You'll catch me there, noon to 2 Eastern. Then we have the Paranormal Guys. This Wednesday night, we have a shaman, and I'm really not sure what to expect. So he says that he's the crazy, amazing J shaman. So we'll see what that's about the first hour. Then we have a war veteran that's coming on to tell his near-death experience and his recovery and back to health. Joel, he's on there. Friday. What day is it? Friday. Wow, I'll actually be in Florida. But the Grin and Guardian gang has got a guest on, and they're talking about police life again, police work, how traumatic it is. Another retired detective, and of course, we're going to talk all things public safety. And then Saturday, I will be drinking at a beach bar somewhere, listening to the Misfits. And this week we have two comedians on. The first hour is Luke. And then the second hour is Christine. So check them out. It's going to be kind of cool. And then we're back to you guys next week.
Sounds busy.
Yeah. Wow. Everyone's a star these days.
I'm planning on just kind of, I won't find a beer since I've been talked out of it now. But I'll find an adult beverage and hang out on the beach somewhere for a few days. So that's where you'll find me.
Can't go wrong.
Kind of a big deal. So, I'm sure everyone will be buying you drinks.
You say that. It's funny you say it. Last time my wife and I went somewhere, somebody said, "You're the guy from the Paranormal Guys." Me? So, yeah, it was really odd. They thought I was staying there because it was a haunted motel. So we ended up having a great conversation, and I will actually go back to that hotel. So, yeah. It was,
because it's haunted.
My wife said she heard stuff, but I didn't. I think it's just an old hotel. It's built in like the 1800s, so it used to be an insane asylum. So I fit right in. So,
did you ever hear anyone say in his mansion in Riley, that Cthulhu quietly sleeps or gently dreams?
No, I heard some snoring. That was about it, but that was from the wife. So.
Okay.
It
Now
was all
you
quiet
know,
except
you know what I was talking about, right?
you're doing an incantation, right?
No, that's H.P. Lovecraft's the Tale of Cthulhu, or the Call of Cthulhu. Sorry, the Call of Cthulhu.
Well, I'm still a chant, right? Or calling
Well,
in.
yeah, it is a chant. You are right. It is a chant.
Yeah. You gotta be careful. So that's Bobby Dizzlebutt calling in UFOs in his backyard. Interesting story. So.
Well, we all like UFOs. This is the Paranormal Network, so that's par for the course. But listen, we Jake and I said, hey, we're definitely going to go over an hour and a half this week because like these games, there's not much to talk about, and here we are at an hour and a half, just babbling away.
Well, you guys do have good banter, and you do go back and forth well. So, and I'm learning this game.
So are we.
I'm trying to follow the University of Tennessee players or the players from Virginia, Tennessee, but it's okay. Now apparently I'm following players' wives. So
you gotta follow something.
Yeah, that could be an interesting hobby.
Yeah. Oh, unless you guys got anything else, we will get out of here.
Yeah, man. I am good. I like I said, I've had a rough few days. I'm good. I'm good to go to bed at 8:30.
I'm fresh out of words.
Wow. A lawyer that's ready to go to bed. Jake, you went to law school by any chance?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
But I sit at a computer all day looking at numbers, so that's equally as exhausting.
I sit at a computer all day listening to voices in my head, so unfortunately, he's one of them. You guys have a wonderful week. I will talk to you soon.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.